Good morning, guys, and welcome to the podcast. I'm really delighted about today's guest, Lin Wu, and he is an entrepreneur from Silicon Valley. He fled China during the Communist Revolution, came over here and started a company. I'm really happy to chronicle his journey. It's going to have a lot of stories about succeeding, core traits, tech entrepreneurship, and really happy to have him on. Lin, welcome.
Thank you, Dr. Lu.
Yeah, we go informal. We all go by first name and just briefly talk about your journey. And I'm really excited to talk to you about your life in Silicon Valley.
I'm just published my first memoir. It's called Destination Silicon Valley. I came into the United States to Southern California when I was 16. I arrived at the Newberry Park Academy as a boarding school student. I found out that my dad did not leave me much money. He never told me. So I suddenly was all by my own. I tried to work on the side, but I could never make enough money to pay for my tuition, room and board. So I searched and searched. Finally, I ended up in a broom shop where the illegal immigrant coming over from Mexico worked there. And they were all grown men. But somehow I was lucky enough to get a job in there. And I became a stitcher, stitch brooms. And 2 years later, I paid my way. I went back east to attend a Ivy League school. I really wanted to attend a Ivy League all my life. And eventually ended up at Columbia University. And then I studied hard and graduated. I got also a graduate school. And I met the love of my life with my wife, and we're married over 50 years now. Worked for IBM 3 years. Those are very exciting days. The first days we're making transistors. We were vacuum tube transistor, so everything was silicon. Nobody knew what silicon was all about. But I was one of the early guys that joined that. And then 3 years later, there was an opportunity in Silicon Valley. I was about 26, 7 years old. I was recruited to join a company called Amdahl Corporation. Dr. Amdahl was one of the key fellow in IBM who created IBM 360 system. He was an architect and he designed the system so that all of IBM mainframe machines were up and down compatible. So we had large customer base all over the world. The airlines, the banks, the insurance companies, all the big enterprise were buying IBM. It was like 80% of the whole computer market was at that time. It was in the early 70s, 1970s. So I found Amdahl as one of the founding engineers. And as it turned out, our company grew. And we have a lot of up and downs. The venture capital people that invested, they now want to fund us the second round because the project was too hard, takes too long, and we could not project who would make the first customer ship. So we finally were able to get a industrial partner from Japan. That's the time everybody was very worried that the Japanese are going to take all of our technology, bring it over there, and do better. I guess a part of the story, but the real thing was we did give them the technology. However, we could not produce and manufacture the mainframe system in the United States. Too difficult. We just couldn't wire the gate. We couldn't make the connectors, and we couldn't make the printed circuit board, which had 14 layers on there. But Fujitsu came in, and they did everything. They did a beautiful job. They wired the gate. They made the printed circuit board. So we have the development. Japan have the manufacturing. Work together, took the company public, and eventually Amdahl became a Fortune 500. It was a very successful story, and IBM put their hat out for us. They never really tried to compete with us. They leave us alone in the marketplace. We had a major share. I grew with the company. In 6 years, I went up 4 levels in management. I started as an engineer. Later on, I became the director of the whole technology division. Had about several hundred people working for me. So it was an immigrant story that I know what I want to do and I work hard for it. I have the right people helping me. And I think the right people who helped me was more important than anything else. I'm just very grateful.
Yeah. And I know there's so many different stories. And when I'm Gen X. When I was growing up, the fear was the Japanese are going to take over, and now today the fear is the Chinese. But to talk about how Silicon Valley is different today, because you talked about the transistor and kind of the PC, and now we have the smartphone and social media. We have AI. So how has Silicon Valley changed?
For one thing, I think it really grew. It's just at the time there were just a very few companies. There was there was Intel, National Semiconductor. The rest of the Silicon Valley were all open field with plum yard all over the place. In fact, outside our building, there were jackrabbits running around. Now the real estate has gone up, and all the software company are here now, and the Googles and Facebooks, and the hardware company, of course, still here, and our East Bay is built up. So it's a tremendous amount of build up, high density, high tech. I think in terms of capitalization, we're definitely number one in the world in terms of how much money are tied up here. This becomes the heart, the brain of the world now. I've really experienced a change. We're lucky to build a home in Los Gatos in the foothills. At the time, 1975, we paid $40,000 for a lot that's an acre. Now I think it's worth several $1 million.
Yeah. So that's a very good return. And I think the other question I have for you is, because you mentioned Silicon Valley is still the beating heart of a lot of venture capital is in this Silicon Valley, all the startups and founders, people want to go there. How has it changed with COVID and remote work? Because now we have a lot of people flocking to cities like Austin and Miami. And also talk about, because you rose up the ranks as engineers and software engineers, and there was a recent post by Mark Zuckerberg saying he's replacing software coders with artificial intelligence. So how is that going to change?
I think the artificial intelligence is coming. We can really fight it. We must embrace it and use. I personally using a lot of the GPT now. When I write my memoir, when I write my letter, when I try to publish my book, I use ChatGPT a great deal. And I found out if I pay a little bit more, 1999, to get E plus, it's basic. I mean, we're having a lunch party. I asked the GPT, says, I can do the layout for this room. I'm gonna have 120 people, give me 12 tables, and on the side, give me the serving table for the cocktails and the wine, food. Oh, boom, it come out beautiful layout that's going on. But the thing we have to be careful is that the technology is not just in Silicon Valley now. It has moved a lot to China. I'm born with Chinese, so we do have some connections. And we know that a lot of things are going on in China. They're really broccoli a lot of different ways. I think having a good relationship with China is important. It goes both ways. I think we should help each other to grow.
Yeah. And that was my next question is, who do you think is leading the war on artificial intelligence? Because that's like the next phase, especially with the chips, the TSMC and the NVIDIA, AMD, all of these chips. Whoever wins the AI and the chip wars is going to dominate. And everybody says the United States is leading, but there's also, is that just raw, or is China actually, do they have the potential to win the AI race?
Investing very heavily in AI, and they are investing more than just in the commercial side of it. China is very much in the Air Force area. They start building the submarines, and the national defense is strong. And in terms of automobiles and commercial airlines, they're all coming up. On the other hand, a lot of basic technology and the core software are still done in the United States. It really all technology flows. So China is commercializing and is frog leaping. But United States, we still have a lot of research going on. I think TSMC or NVIDIA, they basically supply the semiconductor chips. They're not really dominating in itself. They're really the building block for AI. I think the top companies for AIs are still Facebook, Google, and Microsoft, and so forth. Who wins? I don't know. Is one winner take it all? I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah, it could be shared, and it's very fascinating to just be part of history and watch it unfold, and especially looking at how AI has progressed with Waymo, and now we've got, and eventually it's going to move into robo taxis and humanoids. What is the same principles to succeed when you came to the Silicon Valley? Is it the same principles to succeed now, or is it just like the competitive landscape is just so much more competitive that you have to have something else?
Well, certainly when we develop a piece of software, I think the coding now is usually it's done very simply. We have a lot of different ways to do that now. In the early days, to do a coding for a piece of software took a long time, took a lot of team. But what is interesting is that the development team itself cannot be very large. There's a rule, like if you have more than 15, 20 people in a development team doing software, if you have more than that, you actually defeat the purposes of the project. So that still remains as a kind of any project have a core group of people who works on it, and they're the one that create 80% of the real work, creative work, and then we can embellish it, we can create testing, qualification, all that. So I think that still remains that only people that really know what they're going on, and they are very aware of the entire project, they are the one that would. I think that would remain the same. But in terms of application, there's thousands and thousands now. It's all over. Each piece of software can be used many different ways.
Interesting. The other thing is American Dream. What was interesting was, because my parents, they were also immigrants too, and they came, and before you could have like just a middle class job, and you could have 2 kids, you could have 2 cars, you could have a house, you could afford it, and life was pretty stable. You could retire on Social Security. You can't do that anymore, and now people feel like that's not possible, and people aren't having kids, and they're not getting married, and it's just people say that the American dream is dead. If you had to describe the real American dream, what would it look like?
I think everybody's dream is a little bit different. One want to have build a nice career, want to have a loving family, and they want a living area that they can really enjoy, have a quality of life. Silicon Valley is very difficult now. It is very stressful. Watching the next generation, which I'm in my 80s, so next generation, they're in the 50s, late 50s or early 60s. They're still working, struggling. Husband and wife both work. And when they are together, everyone is on the iPhone. So there just isn't a lot of quality time that what I remember that we spend the family together there now. I don't know if that's good or bad, but it's just the way things are. But Silicon Valley is very expensive. I think it's the most expensive place that I have experienced, probably as much as New York City or Paris now. You go to eat dinner or going to see a movie, you can't get away for less than $100 now. Just simple things, not including drinks. Most people can afford it. So what they do, they leave the area. They go to Austin, they go to Phoenix, Idaho. I really think the big company, they need to lead the way and start building away from Silicon Valley. I know the talents are still here, but it's defeated itself now because it's too many people. It's too expensive. I don't think it's going to last.
Yeah, and the other concern is only the rich and the wealthy can get ahead, and they're the only ones that can have the opportunities. Whereas that's why I was talking about, the middle class got hollowed out, and is the American dream is only the rich can get richer, and the rest of us the rest suffers. The next question I have for you is, looking at the Valley, what are pivotal moments or new innovations, people early on who influenced the trajectory of your career and of the Valley itself? For example, the PC revolution, that's how Bill Gates developed Microsoft. And then you had search, you had Google, then you had Meta, the social media, the iPhone. So what were the pivotal moments or key moments, people that influenced the trajectory of your career, either like new innovations, new developments, people, etc.?
My own, I think I was basically a developer for doing mainframe computers. And that was basically slowed down by what we call the arrival of the servers. These are the mid-sized computers. They're very small, but they're very powerful and they're very useful, and you can put them in parallel. So it was the Apollos, the Sun Systems, and the Hewlett Packard that put out a large number of servers. And then now industry use them as server banks so they can be connected in parallel. And the next revolution come along was really the iPhone. I think the iPhone, watching it, it's been phenomenal. It's you can't separate it anymore. I think Apple is projecting they're going to sell 300 million iPhones this year. That is just absolutely amazing. In there, it has semiconductors in there that it has 10, 20 million connections there. When I designed the first computer, we had only about 100 circuits, and we thought that was a lot. So that is, I think, the pivotal point for the hardware is the iPhone that's really taking us ahead now. And the next one is going to be robots and AI, but it's hard to project when they're all going to be here.
Who do you see winning the large language model race? Is it going to be OpenAI? Is it going to be Google? Is it going to be Microsoft, Meta, Grok? Who do you see is leading?
I think Microsoft is certainly spending a lot of energy and time, and Facebook is part of the Meta. I think the Meta is definitely hiring a lot of young, bright engineers out of the school. I know two of my nephews, they are just coming out of Cornell. They both are really excellent EE students in computer science, and they got recruited right away into Meta. I wouldn't tell you how much they're making. There's a phenomenal amount of money. So I think Facebook and Meta are really leading the way. Based on what I know, they're really having a lot of talents right now.
Yeah, and if you had, because we have a lot of people listening to this, a lot of doctors and their kids are coming out of college, what would you suggest they study? Is it, because when I was growing up, my parents told me to study medicine, go into medicine. That was a thing. All my friends and everybody went into medicine. But now, what would you recommend them study? What skills should they focus on?
I think everybody's different, and everybody should go into do something that they really like to do, their own area of interest. You can't go into a technical field if you're not very good in math and science. I think math and science are very hot now. Computer science is very hot. However, it changes a lot. Medical field is slowing down, but with the coming of AI, maybe that will help us changing the medical science into a new research area. We'll do some breakthrough in cancer, and I think that's a really good area to help with mankind. It really depends on the person what he wants to do.
Yeah, because I tell my kids to study finance and economics and go into something business, and also learn how to use artificial intelligence. These are the skills, and I don't see much future in medicine, but those are like a ossified industry, but very interesting. If people wanted to check out your book, and also we have one question from the audience is, how does coming from a different background, being an outsider, navigate how you pursued, because you were navigating a world dominated by established networks and you had to bring different perspectives? How did being an outsider help you succeed with different perspectives and not being part of the inside?
Could you define outsider? I'm not sure what that means.
Outsider is, for example, not coming from a rich background. How did that help you succeed?
In my early days, there were a lot of times that I don't have a lot of choice. I just have to earn enough money so I can make a living. So I work at a broom shop, and then I paid for my tuition and room and board. So that's why I wrote the book. It's called, the book title is Destination Silicon Valley, and then the subtitle is From Broom Shop to Supercomputer. It's basically my journey starting at 16 in this country until I was very successful at the top of my career, and how I broke the glass ceiling. Being an outsider, I guess I see myself as an immigrant. It's important that we don't get discouraged. It's very important that we have some sort of a goal, what you want to do. I always want to go to industry. I want to be a leader in the industry, in the electronic industry. So that's my goal. For my son, he's the head of a venture capital firm now in Silicon Valley. He graduated from Stanford. He has 2 degrees. He has double E. He has economics. And for him, it took him 3 steps probably to get where he wants. For me, it took me about 8 to 10 steps. So that's the message. It may take you longer and more tedious and deviation from where you want to go. But if you keep going at it, it's like steering a boat and going down. You, as long as where you want to go, work toward it, you'll get there. Just be patient. Work
Yeah.
on.
I really enjoyed this talk. And how can people connect with you and check out your book? It'll be in the show notes and learn from you.
Yeah, the book is going to be launched on November 14th, this week. So you can go to Amazon, just type my name, Linwu, Lin Wu, or Destination Silicon Valley, and you'll get the book there. And I think for the first couple of days, you can get a free e-copy. If you want to get a hard copy, you can order it as well. And people want to contact me, they can.
Yeah. Excellent. Thanks so much for coming on. And I really enjoyed this memory filled and so many stories to share with the audience.
Thank you so much.